Good morning. It's Tuesday and it's 11 a.m., which means it's time for the FIU Music Hour on WDNA 88.9 FM, featuring live weekly performances in the WDNA Jazz Gallery, featuring students, faculty, and alumni from Florida International University's School of Music. I'm your host today, Zach Weinstein, and along with our producers Karen Velos and Rodolfo Zuniga, we'd like to welcome you to the FIU Music Hour. Whether you're listening to us in your car or live on wdna.org/FIU, we are delighted to have you join us today for our live performance. Today we are joined by FIU Opera Workshop Co-Director, Collegium Director, and pianist Juvenal Correa-Salas. Juvenal was born in Santiago, Chile, and has performed as a soloist on the organ, piano, and harpsichord in numerous recitals and major ensembles in the United States, Europe, Latin America, and the Caribbean. As a composer, Juvenal has commissioned works in religious choral music and orchestrations, solo piano, electronic music, theater, dance, and full ballets. And now, without further ado, here is Juvenal Correa-Salas performing Estampi from the Robertsbridge Codex.
Good morning. Before playing, I would love to introduce this piece briefly because it's the first piece ever written in history of we have record of the first piece ever written for a keyboard instrument. Obviously, in 1360, there was not a piano or a harpsichord, as other pieces that I will play that were composed originally. This was composed for organ. So you will see a couple of possibilities that I will be doing in the piano related to dynamics, because in the organ you cannot change while you are playing, but you can change in between phrases, meaning that you can take less sound from the instrument. You can add up some pipes or take them away. So this is the Estampi from the Robertsbridge Codex, the first piece ever written for a keyboard instrument from 1360.
and that was Instapi from the Robertsbridge Codex. Next, we'll hear Canzona Ariosa by Andrea Gabrielli.
The next piece belongs to the Italian Venetian actually composer Andrea Gabrielli. This I would try to plan this program to see the evolution of the keyboard literature and how it's developed using a lot of elements related with improvisation. As you saw in the first piece, which was already the first ever written for a keyboard instrument, I was doing some repetitions, and every time that I repeat, I will ornament some of the phrases. That was a custom for musicians, for performers, to always improvise during the performance. Sometimes they had the freedom to improvise complete sections, and sometimes just improvise over the piece that they just play, the phrases that they just play. This is the case again in this Canzona by Andrea Gabrielli. Canzona is related to the idea of a piece originally written for voice. That's why it's called Canzona, from canzone, which means chanson or song. And the idea is because at this time, I'm talking about 1550s, composers imitate into the keyboard music what they were able to do with the voices. So it's very polyphonic. And you will see also some improvisation and ornamentation while I'm playing it.
Next, we'll hear Fantasia number 2 in D minor and number 8 in G minor by George Philipp Telemann.
George Philipp Telemann was a very prolific German composer. He was in the area of Berlin in Germany during the Baroque era. He was actually the godfather of one of the children of Johann Sebastian Bach. So you can see that there was a lot of influences in between composers. They exchange a lot of ideas and therefore they influence each other. Telemann belongs to the Baroque era, no doubt about that, but I choose to play these two fantasias, or fantasies, because they, stylistically speaking, they belong to the late part of the Baroque, which is, I would like to talk about that a little later, which is called the stilo galante, the galant style, the sensitive style. It was called like that because the complexities of the Baroque in the harmony and the polyphony were a little overwhelming, even more with the music of Johann Sebastian Bach. And this style, the stilo galante, came as an answer to that complexity. So they wanted to do it a little more simple lines, that you can identify better without so much complexity into the harmony and into the voices. And this was actually the first step into the classicism, the music that we know as classical music, with the main composers like Haydn, Mozart, and the first part of Beethoven. So this is the antecedent, like the grandfather of the classical style, Fantasia by Telemann. I will play both without interruption.
So, Juvenal, I know you're from Santiago, Chile, and you moved around throughout South America and Europe, but what brought you to Miami and, more importantly, FIU?
I was already living in Florida, in the central east part of Florida, and then there was a big opportunity to come down to Miami, to this area, to do a beautiful music project. And unfortunately, it didn't work as I was planning, but I decided to stay here, but that was the main reason why I came down to Miami. And then networking with the music environment of the city, I was acquainted with some people that brought me to FIU, and then I met Dr. David Dolata, who is a musicologist and a great person and an amazing musician. He plays the lute. We record and perform several times doing some early music. And then he invited me to be in charge of the Collegium, which is the early music ensemble in FIU School of Music. And I got involved with the opera workshop, and then I'm enjoying very much collaborating with Professor Robert Dundas and the chair of the voice department, Dr. Vindia Kari as well. So we work together, and also with other projects involve Dr. Javier Mendoza with the orchestra studies. So I'm pretty active in FIU, and I'm enjoying it immensely. Not only the early music part, but other parts as well. So.
Well, we appreciate the Panther pride for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
What was your inspiration for becoming an expert in this kind of music? Sorry, very specific style.
Yeah, when I was doing my graduate studies, I went to Bloomington, Indiana. I studied in Indiana University School of Music, Jacobs School of Music, and they happened to have an amazing early music institute. The founder actually was kind of my mentor, because I arrived there just before he unfortunately passed. His name was Thomas Binkley. And then I was, from before that, I was already studying music. I was very attracted to early music, but it was essentially in Indiana, where I studied with a little more formality. I studied harpsichord and organ, and understanding the aesthetics of this early music, which is fascinating. And I think that one of the main reasons why I was attracted to it is because being a pianist, and as you know, and the members of this audience, the piano was invented not too long ago. So when you have the problem of facing Baroque music or pre-classical music, or actually pre-romantic music, you have a lot of considerations, and you need to take and being aware of the possibilities of the instrument that originally was written for the music that you have in front of you. So I wanted to go in depth into the idea of knowing way much more about those styles.
This is the FIU Music Hour on WDNA 88.9 FM with today's artist, Juvenal Correa-Salas. When we come back, I'll continue talking with him more about his life. We'll be right back after these messages. And we are back with the FIU Music Hour and the very talented Juvenal Correa-Salas on WDNA 88.9 FM. So, Juvenal, I see that you're a composer as well. Can you talk to us about the type of ensembles that you compose for?
I cannot call myself a composer. I just write music. In order to be a composer, you need to be that. It's a joke, but the composers don't like that joke. What I mean is that history is the only one that can measure if you are a composer or not, because that means that you are transcendental or not. So, yeah, I had the fortune and the good luck, because I cannot call it another way, that all the pieces that I have ever written had been performed. So that's why I'm underlining the idea that I don't consider myself a composer. But I work for commissions for Holy Week, for instance, to write when I was the organist in a church, the Kapellmeister, as it used to be called in Germany. So I wrote the 7 last words of Jesus Christ on the cross in Latin, because I love the singing in Latin, and also I wrote a requiem for a different year that we were celebrating the Good Friday in a beautiful church in Puerto Rico, in San Juan, Puerto Rico. But I've written for a lot of combination of ensemble, also for some choral music.
Was there a specific piece that you wrote that changed your perspective on music, or that just really stood out to you?
A piece that I wrote that changed my perception. Well, actually, yeah, when I premiered the Requiem, Requiem is a mass for the dead, so it also was in Latin. Since the context was for a church that was celebrating the Good Friday, it's not very well seen that people will clap, even though if it's an amazing piece or whatever the quality is. But because the context and the ceremony and the ritual doesn't allow that space. But there was one of the pieces that the soloist, the singer of I'm talking about my Requiem when it was premiere. It sounds so beautiful that people couldn't hold it, and they just clap. And I don't know, it changed my perspective about expression, even though in a format, an environment like a church, which is sacred, and you're celebrating the Good Friday in the Christian tradition, when it was Jesus Christ was crucified, people clapping for the performance. But so I got a little less uptight about rituals and stuff, because sometimes it's a matter of connection. So it's what you connect with people when you are performing, which is important. You cannot censor that. So
No,
I think
course.
that a little bit of expression is okay. So it's not a big deal anymore.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but during the pieces prior, were you doing improvisation a little bit? And if so, what is that process like in Baroque music?
I'm so glad you're asking for this, since this is a radio station dedicated mainly to jazz. There is a misconception about the improvisation, that it only occurs in jazz or in popular music. Improvisation comes from many, many centuries ago. Actually, indeed, the first piece that I play, which, as I mentioned before, was written in 1360 from the Roberts Bridge Codex, which is in England. Composition is an anonymous, so there is not a composer. My point is that even though at that time already people were not only doing it, they were expected to improvise over pieces. So that jazz tradition of improvisation is very, very common from the jazz genre, but it comes from many, many, I would say, millennia ago. So in Baroque music, and since you asked me that question, is also is imperative that the performer that has some knowledge about the style will be improvising. There is something called the aria da capo, aria meaning a reference to a voice composition. And it's called da capo because da capo in Italian means that go back to the beginning, or to the head. Capo is head, the beginning. So I'm saying this because for soloists, for voice soloists, it was expected that they will improvise and ornament the same first section that they did before. So that became a tradition, and well, there is a lot of elements in Baroque music that actually were transplanted into jazz. I was talking before the program, I was talking briefly with Rodolfo Zúñiga, a great drummer. He is very, very knowledgeable about jazz. That even the swing that in jazz, the not equal length of the note, but swing in it, that comes from a term called the inégal in the French Baroque, which was exactly, you will write something that is even, but you will be expected to perform it uneven, which means inégal in French, okay? So, and we can talk about that many hours, but there are a lot of elements in improvisation. For instance, the cadenza in a piano concerto or in a violin concerto or any instrumental solo concerto, which is concerto meaning the soloist doing a part and then the orchestra accompanying other parts. They were expected, not today because it's not anymore used, but they were expected to improvise the cadenza. So you will show off not only your capacity as a technical aspect of your instrument, but the creativity part of that. So there are a lot of improvisational matters into music, and well, it's beautiful that jazz still survives with so much creativity, and there are musicians that still are just seeing one melody and they are able to improvise for, I don't know, minutes and minutes with that material, with that source. I have a very good friend in Ankara. He's from Ankara, from Turkey. His name is Hakan Toker. He lives in Istanbul. And when we were together in Bloomington, we will love to improvise. So somebody will sing something or whistle something, and then we will develop a complete piece. And playing in two pianos or improvising over a subject, but not necessarily into the jazz style, but in different styles. So it's sad that that's a little lost. And it's only, in certain genres of music. But it was a common thing, a very, very common thing.
Well, thank you for bringing it with us today. Do you have any upcoming projects?
Well, in the FIU Collegium, the ensemble dedicated to early music, we are working on the stilo galante, which is the style that I wanted to show and share here in this program. And we are doing several projects, performance and online performance as well. And we are also doing some music from the Latin American Baroque, because we were invited to participate in some Latin American Baroque festivals. And I'm recording some all the pieces written by Johann Sebastian Bach. That's a big task because it's a lot of music. What else? I have a quintet in Panama that we are going to be performing very soon as the vaccine pandemic situation gets a little more allow us to travel more now. So yeah, but in FIU, check it out. I mean, there are a lot of things going on, and I hope people will be checking out the FIU Collegium for new programs.
I think they will for sure after this next piece. You have Sonata per piano forte, Opus 1 number 1 by Ludovico Giostini next, I believe?
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to bring this to this program because I understand that playing Johann Sebastian Bach, Mozart, Brahms, Bartók, Stravinsky, Mahler is extremely important because those are amazing composers that we can identify. Not even musicians or professional musicians, they can recognize the names. But there are a lot of other composers that are very, very good, and other styles that are not very commonly performed or even taught in schools. I think that is very important because there are not excuses these days with the capacity of knowledge that we have and resources. Online you can even see manuscripts these days in order to check the accuracy of the edition that you have in front of you. So I wanted to bring this sonata, which was the first piece ever written for pianoforte. All the pieces that I played before, they were not written for pianoforte. Pianoforte is the real name of this instrument because it's a reference to the dynamic changes. Piano in Italian means soft and forte, loud. So it's a reference to the previous instrument, which was the harpsichord, that didn't have that capacity. So that's why it's called, nicknamed piano. But this is the first piece ever written for the pianoforte. So you will see that I will actually not exaggerate, but you will see a lot of dynamic changes. So this is the first piece ever written for the instrument, for the piano, by Ludovico Giostini. It's the Sonata number 1, Opus 1.
Beautiful. You've been listening to the FIU Music Hour on WDNA 88.9 FM. I've been your host, Zach Weinstein, and along with our producers Karen Velos and Rodolfo Zuniga, we'd like to thank our production crew and the staff of WDNA 88.9 FM for today's broadcast. We love to share our talents and faculty with musicians in our community, so make sure to call 305-384-2896 if you would like more information on all of our programs, or simply like our Facebook page to stay up to date with all of our upcoming performances. Next week, join us again here at 11 a.m. for some great music with the FIU Graduate Student Chamber Ensemble under the direction of Professor Michael Klotz. And now, on the FIU Music Hour, playing us out is Juvenal Correa-Salas performing Sonata Opus 1, number 5 in C major by Elisabetta de Gambarini.
Just to finish, I would love to say a brief introduction to this piece. Elisabetta de Gambarini was a polymath, meaning she was a very, very productive person and interested in many different areas: science, art, painting, philosophy. She was born in 1730, and she belongs to the list of amazing women that composed music during the Baroque era. Unfortunately, our Western civilization didn't praise much for girls that were musicians. They were actually seen as a social, diminishing themselves because they wanted to do some art. That was not considered as something that a woman would be noble for them to do. So it was very difficult for a woman. Even this day, I think it's not as easy as being a man composer. But can you imagine in those 18th centuries or even in the medieval times, we have amazing composers that were women. Hildegard de Bingen was the first one in the medieval times that was an amazing composer with a very prolific production. We have Barbara Strozzi, we have this Elisabetta de Gambarini, with music that is at the same level of any other composer. And that's why I wanted to bring this piece here, because I think it's something worth it for any student, to check out, for composers that are not very well known, but they are of incredible quality of music. So this Elisabetta de Gambarini was actually an English composer, but she was married to a noble Italian gentleman, so she had the capacity to even publish some music. So this is the Sonata 5, originally written for harpsichord, but here, well, I will be playing on the piano, on this modern piano. I hope you enjoyed this program. Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm very happy to be part of this project.
this is the FIU Music Hour on WDNA 88.9 FM. Thank you so much, Juvenal Correa-Salas, for gracing us with your presence today. We really, really appreciate it.
A pleasure for me to be here. And as I said, I invite everyone to check out the programs in FIU School of Music and see what is going on with the early music department and Collegium Ensemble. Thank you so much for
Thank you all so much, and have a great, great day.
Thank you.